This shoe debate has got a lot of people fired up, but which one is the rightful shoe of the year? Today we're comparing the Adizero EVO SL with the Asics MEGABLAST. What's up everybody, I'm Eric McIntyre, aka Rad Dad Bod, and you're watching Rad Dad Bod TV, where we review running shoes. If it's your first time watching one of my videos, you may notice some timestamps below. Feel free to jump around to the various parts of this video, but if you do so, I'd sure appreciate if you come back, watch the full thing when you get a sec, so I put a lot of time and effort into these videos. Now, quick disclaimers and disclosures are that I actually paid for both of these shoes with my own money. That being said, I have received shoes from these brands before in the past. Anytime I've received shoes for review, I have not been paid. I'm not given talk tracks, talking points. No one gets to watch the videos beforehand, and all thoughts are entirely my own. Now, let's kick off today's comparison with the intended use of these shoes. Now, I'm going to use what the brands have given as intended use for these two shoes, not kind of my own speculation, and that is that the MEGABLAST is a do-it-all trainer, and that the EVO SL is also a lightweight kind of do-it-all trainer. Both of these are going to fit into that category of, you know, being capable of daily use, but also being able to pick up speeds and even go on some longer efforts. And as such, that's how we're going to be talking about them today. Now, from a price perspective, there's a pretty big discrepancy between the two, despite them being pretty similar in usage. The EVO SL comes in at $150, which is pretty normal for like a lightweight tempo trainer. And the MEGABLAST comes in at $225. And even as like a premium daily trainer, that is going to be very, very expensive. Even if it were a super trainer, it is going to be very, very expensive. That being said, both of them are selling really, really well, and there could be a pretty good argument that Adidas should have charged more for the EVO SL. So with that in mind, the price points are what they are, and the shoe's worth is basically determined by the runner themselves. So I've already kind of beat this one to death in my opinion, as far as like how I feel about the price of the MEGABLAST. I really like the shoe still, so it is what it is. Now, moving to the specs though, one of the reasons I wanted to compare these shoes is because how similar they actually are, not just in performance, but actually in the specs of the shoes. For example, the MEGABLAST comes in at 7.8 ounces, which is 221 grams, and the EVO SL comes in at 8.1 ounces, which is 230 grams. So the EVO SL, surprisingly, is actually a little bit heavier than the MEGABLAST. Then from a stack perspective, the MEGABLAST has 45 in the heel, 37 in the forefoot for an 8mm drop, and the EVO SL has 37 in the heel, 30 in the forefoot for a 6.5mm drop. So despite being a little bit lighter, the MEGABLAST is actually a little bit higher stack. Now, from a fit perspective, the EVO SL fits a little bit short. I would say it has a standard to roomy toe box, and then I would say that the rest of the shoe is probably standard fit for the most part. Meanwhile, with the MEGABLAST, I would say that it has it's true to size length, so I would go with your normal size. It does have a slightly tapered toe box. I wouldn't say it's full narrow, but I would say narrow-ish, but more on the standard side. Has kind of a roomy heel overall, and then I would say a pretty standard midfoot. Now, moving to the uppers, right, and kind of hand in hand with fit, I don't think either of these guys have a really dialed in upper, right? A lot of people have been really, really critical of the EVO SL upper, and it is sloppy. Just kind of like calling it out, like it is sloppy. The tongue does bunch up. The tongue is short. You know, it's hard to get kind of the right lockdown that you really, really want in kind of that midsole, or that midfoot area. But for me, I found that the upper is still very comfortable, right? So you have some nice cushion there in the heel. The upper as a whole is going to be fairly breathable, which is important if you're going to be able to pick up some of the paces, right? You don't want your feet to overheat. The weak point is definitely the tongue in the midfoot area. The tongue is not gusseted, which I think was one of the biggest errors with the shoe. I would have loved to see it gusseted, and even if it was just a little bit longer, I think that could have helped out as well, right? But for me, even without using the runner's knot, I was able to get good enough lockdown in the upper of the EVO SL, and I didn't have any hot spots or anything or any issues with the upper past kind of the initial almost like loose-ish fit. I've heard some people are replacing the laces. I don't think it's necessarily fair to be like, just put on better laces from like a consumer's perspective, because no, you pay for the shoe, you expect it to have good laces, and it doesn't. And so I think they're all fair criticisms. At $150 though, I don't feel like the upper is that much worse than a lot of the uppers in that $150 category, right? It's more, I think, about the lockdown, but from a material perspective, honestly, I'm not upset with it, right? I know some people are going to get mad at me in the comments, and they're going to be like, no, it's really, really bad. I get it. The EVO SL is probably one of the most polarizing, if not the most polarizing shoe that I've reviewed personally. People on both sides of the argument get really fired up with it. I think that the upper has issues, yes. I just don't think it's that bad. That's my opinion. But moving over to the MEGABLAST also has some issues with the upper, right? So what we have here is it's an engineered mesh upper, but it's a little bit more race-like. So I think it is a little bit more breathable than the EVO SL. But the toe box kind of tapers in a little bit, and it's not the highest volume. And that's something that I kind of, you know, has been a little bit annoying. The tongue is gusseted, which is nice, but I still feel like the upper maybe has like, it just feels like it maybe has a little bit of excess material. I don't know if it's, I feel like it's kind of here where the tongue kind of ends and where the eyelets end as well. I almost feel like it's almost coming up like a high top shoe, right? Versus most running shoes, it doesn't curve up quite as much. You get kind of like a more flat profile here. I feel like this kind of comes up, and I do feel like that's created some excess material that makes the upper a little bit baggy feeling. So as such, you know, I felt like there was some bunching of some of the material. I felt like I couldn't quite get my lockdown that I was really, really looking for. But as a whole, I will say the upper is still better than the EVO SL. Totally valid there. I don't know why brands are doing this right now, but they almost try and make it look like it's like a knit upper or like a booty style upper. But then when you turn it and you actually look inside there, it's a standard, you know, heel counter there. Like it's structured and everything. I don't know why we need kind of this excess little lip here. I feel like that's just opening it up for potential additional friction or irritation. But I didn't have any in that heel area with the MEGABLAST at least. And so, yeah, the MEGABLAST, the upper is probably my least favorite part about it. Visually, I think it looks awesome. I think this is a beautiful looking shoe, but I just wonder, I'm a little confused what they were doing with the upper specifically in this heel and kind of lace area. Now moving to the midsoles, that's really the magic of both of these shoes, right? So with the EVO SL, you have a supercritical TPE foam. It's that Light Strike Pro. And then you do have a midfoot shank. So there is a nylon shank within the shoe as well to give it a little bit more structure. And then over here on the MEGABLAST, you have FF Turbo Squared, which is a TP or an ATPU foam, right? So, you know, not quite their top tier foam. That's FF Leap, but basically like one tier down. It's pretty close to as responsive. It's just not as soft, right? And so it's a little bit firmer. Both of these are not like overly soft or squishy foams in my opinion. Like I think once you get going, once you get moving, both of them do soften up. And I think both shoes shine most in that tempo range, right? Kind of that zone 3, maybe zone 4 range is where you really, really get the most out of both of these shoes. And in that sense, that's one of the reasons why they're very similar. But where they shine, I think is different. I think that the MEGABLAST it shines really in those fast, like kind of attacking the ground, spicy, sharp, short, fast intervals. I think it's very surprising how well it handles kind of that type of workout, like take it to the track, really, really kind of get the, you know, that top end speed. The EVO SL, like when I look at the geometries, I would think the EVO SL would be better at that, but I find that it feels best more at the tempo and threshold zones for the most part. The other thing is that the EVO SL is unstable, right? The geometry, there's a couple of different things that, you know, cause that curvature of the midsole to be a little bit unstable. And so especially, I think that's why there's a lot of people that dislike it, is like if you can't get your lockdown in the upper and pair that with a kind of unstable midsole, then yeah, it's not going to be a good time for you. I feel like I can take this very comfortably, easy, all the way up to tempo paces and be just fine. And I have done short, fast workouts with it, and it's worked out really well as well. It's not my preferred shoe for that space. With the MEGABLAST, I think it's the same. I've run easy in it. I've run like short, fast intervals with it. I like it better running kind of in that moderate space still, but I do think it's a better option if you want to go true speed than the EVO SL. The MEGABLAST is more stable as well. You just get a more stable overall feel. So I think, again, if you've had any stability issue whatsoever, the MEGABLAST is going to be the better option for you. And I think that the foams react similarly, where they're maybe a little bit firmer at slower paces, but as you pick up the pace, they liven up quite a bit. I do think that the MEGABLAST is a little bit softer than the EVO SL though. Moving to the outsoles, the Continental rubber on the EVO SL, for whatever reason, you know, it does get a little bit slick. It hasn't given me crazy issues. I've worn it in all types of weather. And And yeah, but it does get a little bit slick when it's wet outside. So it's something that I would kind of watch out for if you're in an area that rains a lot or is going to get a lot of moisture. The MEGABLAST, I haven't had any specific issues with it, but I still don't love the Asics grip outsole. I feel like there's a lot of exposed foam there too, which can kind of open you up to some concerns or some durability issues. Speaking of that durability, I've heard some people say like the EVO SLs have bottomed out for them at like 50 miles. I've got about 100 on mine and like they feel brand new. The MEGABLAST, I've got about 40 and it's still holding up really, really well. So I don't know how far I could take both of these shoes. But I will say like I could run a marathon in both of them pretty comfortably, right? Like I wouldn't be worried about it. If I was running, I would do a half and a full in either of these shoes. If I was running a 5K or 10K, that's where I would want something a little bit punchier, a little bit faster, right? But both of these shoes, I think that they're comfortable enough and you've got kind of everything you need in them to be able to take them a pretty good distance. So as far as my pick, if you watch my reel, I did a reel or a short on this the other day. I still go EVO SL. The EVO SL for me right now, as of what I've tried so far this year, the EVO SL is my #1 shoe of the year right now. The MEGABLAST is really good, but it doesn't give me the same overall magic and fun that I feel in the EVO SL, right? And I will say that the price point too of the MEGABLAST really does deter me from putting it up there because there's so many shoes at that $150-ish range that I feel like $225 is asking a lot. But again, the value of a shoe or the worth of a shoe is really in the eyes of the runner, right? But like just to name a few, at $150, I mean, you've got the Neo Zen, you've got the Aero Glide, you've got the Rebel, right? All of those are not quite MEGABLAST tier, not quite EVO SL tier, but they're pretty close. Like those are really good shoes. Even the Vomero Plus, I really like the Vomero Plus. It's giving me like, you know, similar Neo Zen vibes actually in my the couple of runs that I've done so far in them. And so it's just that price point's really hard for me to swallow. But at the end of the day, again, a lot of people are calling this their shoe of the year. That's okay. Like if that's how you feel, if that's your opinion, if that's what you enjoy running in, it's valid. So anyway, just some final thoughts. I'm just really impressed overall with running shoes right now. Very, very few shoes that I've tried this year have I been disappointed in. You know, the large majority, I would say like 90+%, I have at least been satisfied with. And then there's been a larger number of shoes this year than the last couple of years that have actually like legitimately blown me away, where I'm running and I stop and I'm kind of like, wow, that's really impressive. Both of these fit that category and a number of the ones behind me also fit that category. So, yeah, if you watched this far though, I sure appreciate you. Let me know what comments or questions you have about this comparison, what other comparisons you'd like to see as well. If you haven't already, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, turn on those notifications. You get notified every time I drop a new video. And if you'd like to support the channel, please consider using any of the affiliate links in the description below. If you're in need of some half tights for marathon season, right, you need something to hold all your gels, hold your phone. I really like the Wallaco Distance half tights. They've been my favorite. I have multiple pairs. And if you use the code RADDAD20 at checkout, you get 20% off and I get a 15% kickback. So it's a great way to support the channel and still get something that you're in need of. Speaking of things you might be in need of, if you need any running nutrition as well, I am partnered with Fuel Goods. So if you use my affiliate link below to purchase any electrolytes, any gels, any post-run snacks, or any like, you know, anything on their website, basically, I also get a kickback. So if you'd like to support the channel and you need to do some running shopping, please consider using those links below. Anyway, we'll wrap up with a question, which should be obvious today, which is your shoe of the year? The EVO SL, the MEGABLAST, or something else? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks, everybody.